Hi, welcome to PreciousMetalsInvesting.org. My name is Ted Sudol, and I have the pleasure of having as a guest today Paul Majenovic. Paul is the author of Precious Metals Investing for Dummies. He also has his own website, theravencapitalist.com. Welcome, Paul.
Good to be back on your program, Ted.
And what we're going to talk about today is silver forecasts. What happened in 2011 and what we think is going to happen in 2012.
Yeah, we'll give it our best shot, First of all, I'm on record as being long-term, very bullish on silver, and I think that the long-term price will hit and probably exceed $100. But whether it happens this year or next year, that remains to be seen. But let's go more short-term. Let's talk a little bit about what happened with silver in 2011 and our forecast for 2012.
Yeah.
Now, some of you know, silver had a little bit of a schizophrenic year in 2011. The first half of the year, it skyrocketed to within a hair of its all-time high. Its all-time high was from January of 1980 at $50, I think, and change. And at April 30th or May 1st, around that time, it hit $49.85 in the spot markets. So close enough for 50. Close enough to meet my forecast of 50. It's like in horseshoes, and hand grenades. You're close enough. Now, then in the second half of 2011, silver pretty much collapsed because of a lot of massive shorting and panic selling from issues stemming to a variety of factors. So among them, the European crisis, among them JP Morgan going short as well, based on the data involved. And so that pretty much put silver on a correction pattern. For the year, for 2011, basically it ended down just slightly, close enough to be calling it a flat year, basically. Whereas gold ended up on the year for the 11th straight year in a row. Now, what does it look like for 2012? Well, as I've already quoted in other venues like Market Watch, etc., I'm expecting $75 silver this year. Is that how likely is that to happen? Well, I put it this way: I'm a little bit more aggressive than some other people in my industry. There's some phenomenal people out there who are forecasting silver at 60, but whether it's 60 or 65 or 70, 75 or even just 55, or just north of 50, the bottom line is this year, I think the fundamentals and the technicals are in place to easily see silver finally breach its all-time high and head north of 50. I wouldn't even be surprised if it starts to consolidate at 50 before it moves up to 75, and then whether it's this year or next year or even after that, heading to 100. So for long-term investors, take it in stride. The fundamentals are on your side. Now, short-term, what are some of the factors? Continuing economic demand. Probably a big factor that I see is that, we're heading into an election year. And generally speaking, the incumbents, whether it's President Obama or past incumbents from Bush to Clinton and some other ones, it's been a historical factor, and a lot of expectations are in place that whenever you're heading into a presidential cycle, there's going to be a lot more money printing to flood the economy to make it look better for the incumbents. So generally, when you hear about QE3, basically what you're talking about is they will probably put in lots of liquidity into the economy, into the financial markets, to at the very least try to make it look good for the election come the fall. So that is a very inflationary factor, and so that is one of the main bullish factors involved for silver heading up to new highs. In addition, I don't know if some people saw it, but right now you have a condition called backwardization in silver, which is a very rare condition, but when it happens, it's usually very bullish. All right, won't go into that one, but the bottom line is that's just another factor. We're also heading into seasonal strength for February, and March. So I see a lot of things going for it in terms of fundamentals and also some of the short-term bounce back.
Right, exactly. And as all of our listeners here at PreciousMetalsInvesting.org know, that we've been advising our listeners to invest in silver or invest in precious metals for the long term and ignore the short-term fluctuations. As Paul said, expect the election season to basically be a time for QE3, quantitative easing, which is basically turning up the speed dial on the printing press to print more money.
Exactly. Now, one fact I just want to mention, if I can, a lot of what happened to silver in 2011 actually had a very great commonality with what happened with silver in 2008. For those who don't recall, silver was north of 20 in the early part of 2008. But then in the second part of 2008, along with all the catastrophic financial goings-on, silver was pushed to almost below the cost of mining it. It actually fell very briefly to below $9 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
But then what ended up happening was that during the next 24 months, it rallied by 240%. So in other words, when it was oversold the way it was in the second part of 2011, you start doing a phenomenal consolidation, and now a lot of people are looking at the fundamentals and moving in. So let's face it, what would happen if silver had a similar run during the next 24 months? What does it mean at 240%? Well, the bottom line is that it's no matter where it finally ends up, and not finally, but where it is in the short term, I think will be something that'll be a very happy condition for a lot of people bullish on silver. So stay tuned on that one. I think some great goings on for silver coming up.
Right, I agree. There's going to be some great goings on for silver. And actually, Paul, in your forecast for this year, you're conservative compared to some of the other silver experts who are saying that it's going to reach $100 by the end of the year.
Well, look at that. Well, for me, look, if it hits 75, I'm fine with that. And
I'll be happy too.
Even if it's at 60, I'll be happy with that as well. So, you know, it's hard to be bankable on short-term forecasts, but again, I'm going to maintain what I said a year ago and what I'll probably say a year from now. You'll see it zigzagging up to triple digits. And by the way, I know some people who are looking at the next 5 years that silver might go to even as high as 400 by some forecast,
right.
Whatever.
Right.
But the bottom line is that, look, I think it's a good way to diversify away from all the goings on in the financial markets right now.
Right,
All right?
Exactly. I was looking at some forecasts by people who are expecting silver to hit $600 and gold to hit $8,000. So they have some experience in the market. I don't know if that's quite where I'd put my pegs, but it certainly sounds like a nice story.
Well, you know, with the market's going to the dogs, it's time for you to go to the dogs then, you know what I mean? You know, the bottom line is bet with the fundamentals. Right. And down the road, I think we'll all come out on the other side, you know, a lot better than what's been happening lately. Right, Ted?
Thanks a lot for being with us today, Paul, at preciousmetalsinvesting.org.